Imagine being condemned by the gods to push a boulder up a mountain. You push, you strain, you suffer. Finally, you reach the summit. And then you watch as the boulder rolls back down to the bottom. And you have to do it again, tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, forever, until the end of time. This is your existence now. Endless, repetitive, meaningless labor. No progress, no achievement, no escape. Just the boulder, the mountain, and you, for eternity. This is the punishment of Sisyphus. And most people, when they hear this story, think it's the worst fate imaginable. The ultimate torture, the definition of hell. But a French philosopher named Albert Camus looked at this myth and said something strange. Something that sounds almost insane. He said, one must imagine Sisyphus happy, pushing a boulder up a mountain forever. Happy despite knowing it's meaningless. Happy in the face of eternal, pointless repetition. How could anyone be happy in that situation? What kind of twisted philosophy would call that happiness? Today, I want to show you why Camus said this. And more importantly, why this dark philosophy of happiness might be the most honest, most liberating way to think about your own life. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Your life is probably more like Sisyphus than you want to admit. You wake up, you work, you accomplish things that don't really matter. You go to sleep, and you do it again tomorrow. Most of what you do is repetitive. Most of your achievements are temporary. Most of your struggles lead nowhere permanent. You're pushing your own boulder up your own mountain every single day. And if you're honest with yourself, you know this. You feel the meaninglessness. You sense the repetition. You wonder what the point is. But you keep pushing anyway. Because what else can you do? Camus would say, accept it. Accept the absurdity. Accept the meaninglessness. And in that acceptance, find a strange kind of happiness. This is the dark philosophy of happiness. Not the bright, optimistic happiness that self-help books promise, but something deeper, something more honest, something that doesn't require you to lie to yourself about the nature of existence. Let's talk about Sisyphus, about meaningless labor, about what it means to be condemned to push your boulder forever. The story comes from Greek mythology. Sisyphus was a king, clever, cunning, and arrogant. He thought he could outsmart the gods. When death came for him the first time, Sisyphus tricked death and chained him up. And for a while, no one could die. The natural order of the universe was disrupted because Sisyphus refused to accept his fate. Eventually, the gods freed death and came for Sisyphus again. But even then, he had another trick. He told his wife not to perform the proper burial rites. And when he arrived in the underworld, he complained that he needed to return to the land of the living to punish his wife for this disrespect. The gods, following their own rules about honor and burial, let him return. And of course, once Sisyphus was back among the living, he refused to return to death. He lived a long, full life, defying the gods again and again. But eventually, inevitably, they caught him. And this time, they decided to punish him properly. Not with death, not with torture in the conventional sense, but with something worse. They condemned him to roll a boulder up a mountain. And just as he would reach the top, just as he would complete the task, the boulder would roll back down, and he would have to start over. Forever. This is important to understand. It's not that the task is difficult. Sisyphus is strong enough to push the boulder. It's not that he fails. He succeeds every single time. He reaches the top. The punishment is that his success means nothing. The moment he achieves his goal, it undoes itself. He's trapped in a cycle of achievement and loss, progress and regression, meaning and meaninglessness. Now, most people interpret this as the cruelest punishment imaginable. And the ancient Greeks certainly intended it that way. This was their idea of hell. Not fire and brimstone, but eternal, futile labor. But Albert Camus, writing in 1942 in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, saw something different. He saw a mirror of the human condition. He saw all of us. Think about your life. You work, you accomplish things. You build a career, a reputation, relationships. You push your boulder up the mountain. But what happens? Time passes. Your achievements are forgotten. Your body ages and fails. Your relationships end. Everything you build eventually crumbles. The boulder rolls back down. And then, if you're still alive, you have to start pushing again. New job, new goals, new relationships, the same cycle. Camus called this the absurd. Not absurd in the sense of silly or ridiculous. Absurd in a philosophical sense. The absurd is the confrontation between human beings who need meaning and a universe that offers none. We are meaning-seeking creatures in a meaningless universe. We want our lives to matter, our work to have purpose, our existence to make sense. But the universe doesn't care. It offers no inherent meaning, no cosmic purpose, no divine plan. We're Sisyphus, all of us, pushing boulders up mountains, watching them roll back down, and having to decide whether to keep pushing or give up entirely. Most people don't think about this directly. They distract themselves. They tell themselves stories about how their work matters, their lives have purpose, their struggles lead somewhere meaningful. And these stories help. They make the pushing bearable. They give you a reason to get out of bed in the morning. But Camus believed these stories are lies. Comforting lies, perhaps, but lies nonetheless. And he thought we'd be better off facing the truth directly. The truth is this: your boulder will roll back down. Always. Everything you build will be destroyed. Everything you achieve will be forgotten. Everything you love will be lost. This sounds depressing, nihilistic, like a philosophy of despair. But Camus insisted it wasn't. He wrote, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. How How can Sisyphus be happy? How can meaningless, endless labor lead to happiness? That's what we need to understand. Because if we can understand how Sisyphus can be happy, we might understand how we can be happy too. Despite the meaninglessness, despite the repetition, despite knowing our boulders will roll back down. To understand Camus' strange philosophy of happiness, we first need to understand what he meant by the absurd. The absurd is not a property of the world. It's not a property of human beings. It's the relationship between them. It's what happens when meaning-seeking consciousness confronts a meaningless universe. Humans ask, why am I here? What's the point? What does this all mean? We can't help asking these questions. It's built into our nature. We're conscious. We're aware of our existence. And that awareness demands meaning. But the universe doesn't answer. It's silent, indifferent. It doesn't care about your questions. It doesn't offer explanations or purposes or reasons. This gap between our need for meaning and the universe's refusal to provide it is what Camus called the absurd. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you become aware of the absurdity of existence, you can't go back to naive belief. Traditionally, humans have responded to the absurd in 3 ways. The first response is physical suicide. If life is meaningless, why continue? If the universe doesn't care, why not just end it? This is the most honest response in some ways. It faces the absurd directly and says, I can't bear this. I'm opting out. But Camus rejected this response. He thought suicide was an admission of defeat, a way of letting the absurd win. If you kill yourself because life is meaningless, you're saying the meaninglessness matters more than the living. The second response is what Camus called philosophical suicide. This is when you make a leap of faith. You decide to believe in God or cosmic meaning or some kind of ultimate purpose, even though you have no rational grounds for that belief. This is what Kierkegaard did. He acknowledged that faith is absurd, that it can't be rationally justified, but he chose to believe anyway. He made what he called the leap of faith. Camus rejected this too. He thought it was intellectual dishonesty, lying to yourself to make the absurd bearable, pretending there's meaning when you know there isn't. So if you reject both physical suicide and philosophical suicide, what's left? How do you live in the face of the absurd? Camus' answer is what he called revolt or rebellion. You face the absurd directly. You acknowledge the meaninglessness. You accept that your boulder will roll back down, and then you push it anyway, not because you believe it will eventually stay at the top, not because you think the gods will reward you, not because you've convinced yourself the pushing has some cosmic significance. You push because that's what you choose to do. You push in full awareness that it's meaningless. You push in defiance of meaninglessness. You push as an act of rebellion against the absurd. And in that rebellion, in that conscious choice to continue despite knowing it's futile, you find freedom. This is the key. Sisyphus is free, not despite his condemnation, but because of it. The gods took away his hope. They made it absolutely clear that his labor is meaningless. And in doing so, they freed him from the need to pretend otherwise. He doesn't have to lie to himself. He doesn't have to believe his pushing matters. He doesn't have to hope things will get better. He knows they won't. The boulder will roll back down. That's certain. And that certainty, that absolute clarity about the meaninglessness of his task, is liberating. Because once you stop hopping for meaning, once you stop searching for purpose, once you accept the absurd, you're free to just live. Think about your own life. How much energy do you waste trying to make your work feel meaningful? How much anxiety do you experience wondering if you're on the right path, if your choices matter, if you're accomplishing enough? What if you could just stop? What if you could accept that it doesn't really matter? That your path isn't more right or wrong than any other path? That your accomplishments don't have cosmic significance? This sounds depressing, but Camus would say it's actually liberating. Because once you stop caring about ultimate meaning, you can focus on immediate experience. You can be fully present in the pushing itself, rather than constantly worrying about whether the pushing serves some greater purpose. Sisyphus doesn't spend his descent down the mountain planning how he'll push differently next time. He doesn't strategize. He doesn't hope. He just descends, conscious, aware, present. And when he reaches the bottom and begins pushing again, he's fully engaged with the pushing. Not because it matters, but because it's what he's doing right now. This is what Camus meant by imagining Sisyphus happy. Not happy in the sense of cheerful or optimistic, but happy in a deeper sense. Satisfied, complete, at peace with the absurdity of his existence. The happiness comes from acceptance, from no longer fighting against the truth, from no longer demanding that the universe provide meaning it can never provide. Most people spend their lives in a state of existential anxiety. They worry about whether their life has meaning, whether they're making the right choices, whether they'll be remembered, whether it all matters. But Sisyphus doesn't have this anxiety. He knows his life has no meaning. He knows his choices don't matter. He knows he won't be remembered. The gods have made this perfectly, brutally clear. And that clarity is a gift, because it means he can stop worrying. He can stop seeking. He can stop trying to justify his existence. He can just push the boulder, fully, completely, without reservation. This is the dark philosophy of happiness. Happiness not through finding meaning, but through accepting meaninglessness. Not through achieving your goals, but through accepting that achievement is temporary. Not through escaping the boulder, but through embracing it. Now let's make this personal. Let's talk about you, about your boulder, about your mountain. You wake up every morning. You have things you need to do, work, responsibilities, tasks. You spend your day doing them, and then you go to sleep. tomorrow, you have to do it again. If you're employed, you probably spend most of your waking hours doing things that, if you're honest, don't really matter that much. You attend meetings. You respond to emails. You complete projects that will be forgotten in a month. You're working to earn money, and you need the money to survive, so you can work more, to earn more money, to survive. It's circular. It's a cycle with no exit. This is your boulder, your job, your routine, your daily grind. And like Sisyphus, you reach the summit sometimes. You complete the project. You get the promotion. You achieve the goal. But it doesn't last. The project is replaced by another project. The promotion comes with new responsibilities and pressures. The goal, once achieved, becomes less satisfying than you expected. The boulder rolls back down, and you start pushing again. If you're lucky, you enjoy parts of your work. If you're very lucky, you find meaning in it. But even then, even in the best jobs, there's repetition. There's routine. There's the knowledge that no matter how much you achieve, you'll still have to come back tomorrow and do it again. The modern workplace has made this worse. We're more productive than ever. We have more technology, more efficiency, more optimization. But has this made us happier? Has it made our work feel more meaningful? No, it's made us push faster. The boulder hasn't gotten lighter. The mountain hasn't gotten shorter. We've just been conditioned to push more quickly, more constantly, with less rest in between. And we're told to find meaning in this, to be passionate about our work, to bring our whole selves to the office, to think of our colleagues as family and our job as a calling. But deep down, most of us know it's not. Most of us know that if we stopped showing up, someone else would fill our position within a week. That our contributions, while valued in the moment, will be forgotten soon after we're gone. That we're ultimately replaceable. This is the modern absurdity. We're told our work matters, while simultaneously being treated as disposable. We're told to find meaning in our careers, while knowing those careers could end tomorrow for reasons beyond our control. Camus would say, stop pretending. Stop lying to yourself about the meaning of your work. Face it directly. You're pushing a boulder. It will roll back down. This is the nature of modern labor. And once you accept this, once you stop trying to find cosmic significance in your job, something shifts. The anxiety lessens. The pressure eases. Because you're no longer demanding that your work justify your existence. You can still do good work. You can still take pride in doing things well. You can still find satisfaction in the process. But you're not burdening your work with the impossible task of providing your life with meaning. This applies beyond work too. Think about your relationships. You build friendships. You invest time and energy. And sometimes those friendships end. People move away. They change. They drift out of your life. The boulder rolls back down. You can be devastated by this. You can feel like the friendship was meaningless if it doesn't last forever. Or you can be like Sisyphus. You can accept that everything is temporary, that people come and go, and still value the friendship while it lasts. Think about your accomplishments. You work hard, you achieve things, and then they're forgotten. Your career achievements matter intensely while you're working, but the moment you retire or change jobs, they're irrelevant. The boulder rolls back down. You can spend your life chasing lasting legacy, trying to do something that will be remembered. Or you can accept that everything is temporary, that fame is fleeting, that even the greatest achievements eventually fade, and still find satisfaction in the achieving itself. This is what Camus meant by revolt. Not giving up, not becoming passive, but continuing to push, to build, to create, to love, while fully accepting that it's all temporary, that the boulder always rolls back down. Most self-help philosophy tells you the opposite. It tells you to find your purpose, pursue your passion, leave a legacy. It promises that if you work hard enough, if you're passionate enough, if you make the right choices, you can achieve lasting meaning. But Camus says, that's a lie. There is no lasting meaning. The boulder always rolls down. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you can stop wasting energy on impossible dreams and start living fully in the present. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals. Sisyphus has a goal: get the boulder to the top. He works toward it, he achieves it, and then he starts over. The difference is that Sisyphus doesn't attach his sense of meaning or worth to achieving the goal. He doesn't think, if I can just get this boulder to the top and make it stay, then my life will have been worthwhile. He knows it won't stay. He pushes anyway. You can live this way too. You can have goals, work toward them, achieve them, and let them go. You can build things knowing they'll fall apart. You can create knowing your creations won't last. You can love knowing you'll eventually lose what you love. And you can do all of this without the crushing weight of needing it to mean something beyond itself. Without needing your work to justify your existence. Without needing your relationships to last forever. Without needing your life to have some grand, cosmic purpose. This is the dark philosophy of happiness. Not happiness through achievement, but through acceptance. Not happiness through meaning, but through the recognition that meaning isn't required. Not happiness through hope, but through the abandonment of hope and the embrace of reality as it is. There's a moment in Camus' essay that's often overlooked. It's the moment when Sisyphus reaches the top of the mountain and watches his boulder roll back down. And then he must descend to begin again. Camus writes, "It is during that return, that pause, that Sisyphus interests me. The descent, the pause between achieving the goal and beginning again. This is when Sisyphus is most conscious, most aware, most himself. During the pushing, he's engaged with the task. His mind is occupied. His body is working. He's in the flow of effort. But during the descent, he has time to think, to reflect, to understand his situation fully. This is when he could despair, when he could rage against the gods, when he could collapse into nihilistic depression. But Camus says we must imagine him superior to his fate. We must imagine that during this descent, Sisyphus achieves a kind of consciousness that makes him free. He sees his situation clearly. He understands that his labor is endless and meaningless. He knows the gods have condemned him. He accepts all of this. And in that acceptance, in that moment of perfect clarity, he is no longer a victim. He becomes the author of his own existence. Because the one thing the gods cannot take from him is his consciousness, his awareness, his ability to choose his attitude toward his fate. Viktor Frankl, a psychologist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, wrote something similar. He said, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." Sisyphus cannot choose to stop pushing the boulder. That's his condemnation. But he can choose how he thinks about the pushing. He can choose his attitude toward his fate. And in that choice, he finds freedom. This is why Camus says we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Not because his situation is objectively good, but because he has found a way to be free within it. He has accepted the absurd. He has stopped demanding that his life be different from what it is. And in that acceptance, he has found peace. Now think about your own descents, the moments between tasks, the pauses in your routine. What do you do with these moments? Most people fill them. They scroll on their phones. They distract themselves. They avoid thinking about the bigger picture, because thinking about it is uncomfortable. It raises questions they don't want to answer. But Camus would say, use these moments. Be conscious during your descent. Think about your boulder. Understand your situation clearly. And then choose. Choose to push again. Choose to continue. Not out of blind habit or desperate hope, but out of conscious acceptance. This is harder than it sounds, because consciousness is painful. Awareness of the absurd is uncomfortable. It's much easier to stay distracted, to keep busy, to avoid the big questions. But the benefit of consciousness is freedom. When you're aware of what you're doing and why, when you've accepted the absurdity of it, you're no longer trapped. You're choosing. And that makes all the difference. Sisyphus during the descent is more free than most people ever become. Because most people never fully accept their situation. They're always hoping things will change. Always believing there's some way to make the boulder stay at the top. Always convinced that if they just work harder or smarter or differently, they'll finally escape the cycle. But Sisyphus knows better. He knows the boulder will roll down. He knows this with absolute certainty. And that knowledge frees him from hope. Hope, in this case, is a prison. It keeps you focused on a future that will never arrive. It prevents you from being fully present in your current reality. Hopelessness, paradoxically, is liberation. When you stop hopping, things will be different. You can finally accept them as they are. And acceptance is the foundation of Camus' dark happiness. This doesn't mean you become passive. Sisyphus doesn't sit at the bottom of the mountain, refusing to push. He pushes, fully, completely, with all his strength. The difference is that he pushes without attachment to outcome. He pushes because that's what he's doing now, not because he believes it will lead somewhere meaningful. You can live this way too. You can work hard without believing your work will lead to lasting fulfillment. You can love deeply without believing love will protect you from loss. You can create beautiful things without believing they'll achieve immortality. You can push your boulder knowing it will roll back down. And you can do it with a strange kind of joy. The joy of effort without illusion. The joy of action without false hope. The joy of living fully in the present because you've stopped fantasizing about a different future. This is the dark philosophy of happiness. And it's dark not because it's depressing, but because it refuses the light of comforting illusions. It insists on seeing reality clearly, even when that reality is uncomfortable. And in that darkness, that clarity, that refusal to pretend, there's a kind of happiness more honest and more durable than anything based on hope or belief in meaning. So you are condemned to meaningless labor. Your boulder will roll back down. Your achievements will be forgotten. Your relationships will end. Your body will fail. Everything you build will crumble. This is the truth. The dark, uncomfortable, unavoidable truth about existence. And Camus says, accept it. Face it directly. Stop pretending otherwise. Stop hopping for cosmic meaning. Stop searching for ultimate purpose. Stop demanding that the universe care about you, because it doesn't, and it never will. You are Sisyphus, and you are condemned to push your boulder forever. But here's the strange thing. Once you fully accept this, once you stop fighting against it, once you embrace your condemnation, something shifts. The anxiety lessens. The pressure eases. The desperate need to justify your existence fades. Because you've stopped requiring your life to mean something beyond itself. You can push your boulder without needing it to matter. You can do your work without needing it to be cosmic purpose. You can love without needing it to last forever. You can create without needing your creations to achieve immortality. You can simply be present, aware, alive, pushing your boulder because that's what you're doing right now. And in that simple acceptance of what is, without demanding it be different, without hopping for something more, without believing in anything beyond the immediate reality of your existence, you find freedom. This is the dark philosophy of happiness. Happiness not despite meaninglessness, but through it. Happiness not by escaping your condemnation, but by embracing it. Happiness not in the destination, but in the pushing itself. Sisyphus pushes his boulder. You push yours. The boulder rolls back down, and you push it again. And one must imagine you happy. Not because your situation is good, not because it will get better, not because it means something, but because you've accepted it, because you've stopped demanding more, because you found freedom in the acceptance of your fate. This is the only honest happiness available to conscious beings in an absurd universe. And it's enough. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, and one must imagine you happy too. Thank you for watching Painted Philosophy. If this dark philosophy resonates with you, if you recognize your own boulder in Sisyphus myth, if you felt the weight of meaningless labor and wondered how to bear it, leave a comment. Share your boulder. Because even though we can't escape the absurd together, we can at least acknowledge it together. Subscribe for more philosophy that doesn't offer comfortable lies. Philosophy that faces the darkness directly and finds something valuable there. Philosophy that accepts the boulder and teaches you to push it anyway. Until next time, remember, your labor is meaningless. Your boulder will roll back down. And that's exactly why you're free. Now go push your boulder with full consciousness, with complete acceptance, with strange, dark happiness.